This is Celine Dion, and this is my life in looks.
Ladies and gentlemen, Celine Dion.
Celine Dion.
Celine Dion.
From Caesar's Palace, Celine Dion.
For 17 years, Celine Dion hid something from the world. Not a scandal, not an affair, something far more frightening. It started in her throat. The one place a singer can never afford to lose. And that's what happens. And it's very difficult for me. It's hard to watch. She blamed it on tiredness. She blamed it on overwork. She kept smiling, kept performing, kept lying to herself. Every night in my dreams, I see you a feeling. Then in 2022, the truth finally came out. And it had a name most people had never heard. Now at 58, she is making a decision that has shocked even the people closest to her. And the risk behind it is bigger than anyone realizes. The day the world watched her break. In June 2024, there was no stage, no crowd, and no performance. Celine Dion was lying on a massage table in a private therapy room when her body suddenly went into spasm. It started in her foot, then spread through her leg, torso, arms, and face until her whole body was convulsing. She was fully conscious the entire time, crying and groaning in pain while her medical team rushed to help her. They gave her diazepam nasal spray, a drug used in serious emergencies like cluster seizures. And the episode went on for several minutes while the camera kept rolling. What made the moment so difficult to watch was that she was awake through all of it. She knew exactly what was happening, but she could not stop it. That is what makes the scene so hard to watch. She feels every second of it. She knows what is happening. She cannot stop it. And when it is over, she says something that hurts even more than the seizure itself. She says these episodes make her feel embarrassed. That word stays with you. This is a woman who has performed for kings, queens, presidents, and stadiums full of strangers. She has stood at the center of some of the biggest stages on earth. Yet, the illness inside her leaves her feeling ashamed, as if her own body has turned against the life she spent years building. The director, Irene Taylor, later admitted that filming that moment was one of the hardest things she had ever done. Part of her wanted to stop. Part of her felt she should stop. Still, Celine had already made her wishes clear. Keep filming. Decide later what belongs in the final cut. Then the story takes a sharp turn. Only months later, that same woman stood on the Eiffel Tower in Paris. Rain was falling. The world was watching. She wore a white gown and sang with control, grace, and power. The body was the same. The illness was the same. Yet somehow the moment was completely different. That is where the real question begins. Celine Dion is now stepping toward a huge comeback with sold-out shows, a public hungry to see her again, and a disease that has no cure. Millions of people want to believe they are watching one of the greatest returns in modern music. But what exactly are they watching? Is it triumph or is it risk dressed as hope? Queen of the world before the fall. To understand what she is fighting now, you have to understand what she once built. Because Celine Dion did not simply become famous. She built one of the most remarkable careers in music history. She was born on March 30, 1968 in Charlemagne, Quebec. She was the youngest of 14 children. Her family did not have much money, though music filled the house. Her father played accordion. Her mother organized the family into a performing group. In that world, music was never distant. It was always there. So, when little Celine climbed onto a stool and began singing in the family piano bar, it did not feel unusual. It felt natural. She was only 5 when she performed for a real crowd. Not a classroom, not a church hall, a real audience. For her, the stage arrived early and it never really left. Her first big international breakthrough came in a surprising way. At 19, she stood on the Eurovision stage in Dublin, not for Canada, but for Switzerland. She sang in French. She won by a single point, just one. Yet that tiny margin opened a door that changed her whole life. Still, none of it would have happened without Renee Angel. He was a music manager when Celine's brother sent him a demo tape of her singing at age 12. Most people in his position would have listened politely and moved on. Renee did the opposite. He believed in her so deeply that he mortgaged his home to fund her first album. That decision shaped everything that came after. At first he was her manager. Later he became the great love of her life. Then he became her husband. Their marriage lasted 22 years and his presence became part of the emotional center of her music. He died of throat cancer in January 2016. That loss matters. It sits quietly behind much of what came later. Before we get there though, look at the scale of what she achieved. More than 200 million albums sold around the world. My Heart Will Go On became one of the most famous songs ever recorded. She won 5 Grammy Awards. Then there was Las Vegas. Her residencies did more than break records. They changed the way modern artists thought about live performance. Her first run, A New Day, became the highest-grossing concert residency of all time. Then she returned with a second run and reached another extraordinary level. In the history of Billboard's residency records, Celine holds both the first and second highest-grossing spots. She was not just successful. She was a force so steady and so dependable that people began to take her power for granted. That is why what came next felt so shocking. For decades, she had lived inside a body and voice that seemed unstoppable. Then, little by little, something began to shift quietly deep inside her nervous system. At first, almost nobody noticed, not even her. The secret she carried for 17 years. This part of the story feels almost impossible to believe. In her documentary, Celine revealed that she had been living with symptoms for around 17 years before she finally received her diagnosis in 2022. 17 years. That means fans watched her sing, smile, wave, and finish shows night after night while she was quietly fighting something she could not explain. What makes that even more painful is where it started. It began in her throat. For a singer, that is the most frightening place anything can go wrong. She described it as vocal spasming. Her voice would tighten. Control would slip away. The instrument she had spent her life mastering suddenly stopped responding in the way she knew so well. At first, she tried to explain it away. Maybe she was tired. Maybe she had worked too much. Maybe rest would fix it. Those explanations made sense at the time. After all, she had performed for years at an exhausting level. But another possibility was slowly rising beneath those excuses. And that possibility was much harder to face. If your voice is not just your career, but the center of your identity, then losing control of it feels like losing the map of your whole life. Celine once said that before the illness hit her hard, she followed her voice everywhere. It guided her. It brought her joy. It gave shape to the best version of herself. So when that voice began to fail in strange and frightening ways, she did not have an easy way to process it. The fear was too deep, so she kept it hidden. Not because she wanted to fool anyone, because she was trying to survive. Then the signs grew harder to hide. In October 2021, she postponed the opening of her new Las Vegas residency at Resorts World Theater. The official reason was severe and persistent muscle spasms. The public heard the words, but they still did not know the full story. No diagnosis had been shared. No explanation had been given. It was just another vague announcement about health issues. A few months later, in January 2022, she canceled the remaining dates of her Courage World Tour. Again, the explanation pointed to muscle spasms and medical advice. Still, the real name of the condition remained unknown to the public. When she later spoke openly in the documentary, she revealed something heartbreaking. There were times on stage when she turned the microphone toward the crowd because she could not trust her own voice to carry the note. People may have thought it was a warm gesture, a way of sharing the song with her audience. Sometimes it was, but sometimes it was also a cover, a way to hide the truth. She later described that silence as a lie she could no longer carry. For nearly 2 decades, the world watched her perform. And all that time, the real battle stayed hidden in plain sight. The word nobody had heard. In December 2022, Celine Dion sat down in front of a camera and told the world the truth. She had been diagnosed with stiff person syndrome. For many people, that was the first time they had ever heard those words. At the same time, she announced that she was canceling her Courage World Tour. The condition that had haunted her for years finally had a name, and that name came with its own kind of fear. So, what is stiff person syndrome? In simple terms, it is a rare autoimmune neurological disorder. It causes severe muscle stiffness and painful spasms. These spasms can strike without warning. They may affect the torso, the arms, the legs, and sometimes even the face. The body becomes rigid. Movement becomes difficult. Ordinary sounds, sudden touch, stress, or strong emotion can trigger a crisis. That last part matters more than most people realize. This disease does not only respond to physical strain. It can also respond to feeling. The nervous system becomes overactive. In many cases, people with this condition have very low levels of GABA, a chemical in the brain that helps calm nerve activity and regulate movement. When that calming system is not working well, the body stays on edge. The brakes fail. The muscles fire when they should not. Emotion can become a trigger because the body cannot settle itself the way it should. Now, think about what that means for Celine Dion. She is a singer. Her whole life has been built around emotion. A live performance brings lights, sound, excitement, adrenaline, tension, and release. The audience rises. The music swells. The moment becomes electric. For most performers, that energy is the fuel. For Celine, it can also be a threat. That is the cruel center of this story. The illness did not simply attack her body. It attacked the exact system her art depends on. And there is no cure. That truth has to stay in full view. Stiff person syndrome can be treated. Symptoms can sometimes be managed with therapy, medication, muscle relaxants, and careful control of triggers. Still, managed does not mean gone. The illness stays. It may stabilize for a while. It may get worse. It may surprise even the people treating it. So when the world says Celine Dion is making a comeback, the word sounds simple. In reality, it is anything but simple, because what does a comeback even mean when the illness never leaves? That question follows everything that comes next. Rock bottom captured on camera. In June 2024, Amazon Prime Video released I Am, Celine Dion. Very quickly, it became one of the most talked about documentaries in the world. People expected an emotional film. What they got was something far more raw. Celine had given the director full access. There was no soft filter over her suffering. The camera saw the medications. It saw the therapy. It saw the private cost of a public life. And by the end of the film, viewers were face to face with a scene that many of them would never forget. Earlier that day, Celine had been in a recording studio working on music for the film Love Again. Later, she went into a therapy session. She lay on a massage table while her sports medicine therapist, Tara Lobo, worked with her. Then the spasms began. First her hands, then her feet, then her body tightened into a full crisis. Her therapist quickly realized what was happening. He moved her, supported her, and gave her the nasal spray. The seizure lasted for several minutes. Through all of it, she remained awake. The director later said it was one of the hardest moments of her life. She wanted to help. She wanted the camera to disappear. Yet Celine had already made the choice. Keep filming. Decide later. And when the time came to cut the documentary together, Celine watched that painful scene and made another choice. She told them to keep it in. That decision says a great deal about who she is. She did not show the world her worst moment to shock people. She did it because she wanted people to understand what this illness really looks like. She wanted those living with rare conditions, invisible pain, and constant fear to feel seen. Then comes one of the most revealing moments in the whole film. After the seizure ends, after the pain, after the helplessness, after all the fear in the room, Celine gets up, she walks out, and somehow she becomes the one comforting the director. That image carries the full weight of her story. Even in the middle of collapse, something inside her still reaches outward, the boldest risk of her career. Then came Paris. July 26, 2024. Opening ceremony of the Olympic Games. For weeks, there had been rumors about a surprise finale performer. Organizers stayed quiet. Her team stayed quiet. Nobody would confirm anything. The show unfolded on a grand scale with the Seine at the center and the world watching. Then the cameras turned toward the Eiffel Tower. There she was. Celine Dion stood high above the city in a white Dior gown. Rain was falling. The piano began. Then she sang. The song was À l'amour by Edith Piaf. That choice mattered. It was not random. Piaf wrote that song out of deep love and deep loss. It carries longing, surrender, devotion, and pain. For Celine to sing those words in that moment gave the performance another layer. She was not simply returning. She was speaking through a song that already knew heartbreak. And that is what made the performance feel so powerful. This was a woman who had hidden a terrible illness for years. A woman who had lost her husband. A woman who had recently shown the world her weakest and most painful moment. Yet now she stood in rain in front of millions and opened her mouth anyway. Kelly Clarkson, while commenting on the ceremony for NBC, called her a vocal athlete. That description felt exactly right. What Celine did that night required discipline, courage, timing, control, and endurance of a very high order. It may have looked graceful from a distance, yet behind that grace sat enormous risk. Because this was not a safe or simple performance. Her own documentary had already shown that singing could trigger a neurological crisis. Emotional intensity could trigger a crisis. Physical strain could trigger a crisis. The Olympics performance carried all of that. She was outdoors. It was wet. The world was watching live. There was no second try waiting backstage. If her body had failed her in that moment, everyone would have seen it. Instead, she delivered the song from start to finish. The crowd erupted. The performance became one of the defining moments of the ceremony. Later that year, she released the live recording on streaming platforms. A quiet but confident message to anyone still unsure. She was still here and she was not ready to fade. The best birthday gift of her life. Before the official announcement came, there were signs. In the weeks before March 30th, 2026, mysterious posters began appearing across Paris. They did not carry her face or her name. They carried song titles. For those who knew her music, the message was obvious. Then came a cryptic post online in her voice. It was short. It was simple. It was enough to send people into a frenzy. Then the date arrived. March 30th, 2026, her 58th birthday. Once again, the Eiffel Tower stood behind her as she delivered the news. Celine Dion announced that she would return to the stage for a residency in Paris. She called it the best birthday gift of her life. The chance to perform again clearly meant more to her than almost anything else. What made her message even more moving was the way she chose her words. She did not say she was cured. She did not suggest the disease had disappeared. She said she felt good. She said she felt strong. She admitted she was a little nervous. Most of all, she said she felt grateful. Those words carried honesty. They also carried awareness. She knows what lives inside her body. She knows what standing on a stage will cost. Yet, she also knows what it gives back. The venue would be Paris La Défense Arena, the largest indoor arena in Europe. This was not a quiet return. It was a major statement, a huge room, a huge production, a huge moment. At first, 10 shows were announced, running from September 12th to October 14th, 2026. Then, ticket demand exploded in a way that stunned even seasoned promoters. Nearly 9 million people entered the lottery for a chance to buy tickets. The number was so large, it felt unreal. The answer from the public was immediate and overwhelming. 6 extra shows were added. The total rose to 16. Then more dates were confirmed for May 2027, stretching the residency into another year. That response told its own story. People had not forgotten her. They had not moved on. They had not replaced her in their hearts. They were waiting. And the second she called, they answered. The question nobody likes to ask. Now comes the uncomfortable part. It would be easy to turn this story into a clean tale of courage and comeback. It would be easy to put bright music behind it and end with applause. Yet the truth is more complicated and the truth matters. Celine Dion still has stiff person syndrome. That has not changed. The illness was there when she sang at the Olympics. It will be there when she steps into the arena in Paris. It does not pause for headlines, ticket sales, beautiful gowns, or public hope. It remains unpredictable. It remains serious. It remains part of her life every single day. That is why her planned residency is such a huge gamble. The Olympic performance was one song, a few minutes, a single peak, a tightly prepared event. A residency is something else entirely. It means full concerts. It means long sets. It means repeated emotional and physical strain across many nights. It means recovery, then more effort, then more recovery, then another show. It means facing the same triggers again and again inside a very short period of time. That difference is enormous. Her documentary already showed what singing can do to her nervous system when it pushes too far. The stage brings lights, noise, adrenaline, expectation, memory, emotion, and pressure. All of those things can feed the exact kind of overstimulation her illness turns into danger. So, the questions people are quietly asking make sense. Can her body hold up across so many dates? What happens if she needs to postpone even one show? What happens if an episode strikes in the middle of a performance with thousands of people watching? These are not cruel questions. They are honest ones. Anyone who truly cares about her should be able to face them. That is also why this story carries tension even in its most hopeful moments. The concern is not about whether Celine Dion matters. Of course, she matters. The concern is whether a woman with a chronic, incurable, progressive neurological illness can keep doing the most demanding thing she has ever done. And the only truthful answer is this. Nobody knows why she is doing it anyway. Even with all of that uncertainty, she is still moving toward the stage. And the reason becomes clear when you listen closely to what she has already said. Celine knows the risk better than anyone. She knows the pain. She knows the fear. She knows what it feels like when her body locks up and refuses to obey. At one point during her worst period, she said she was taking 80 to 90 milligrams of Valium a day just to walk, swallow, and function. She knows what it means to try to sing and hear silence where her own voice should be. So there is no illusion here. She is not being careless. She is choosing. And her choice is built on a simple belief. She has said that if she cannot run, she will walk. If she cannot walk, she will crawl. The point is not speed. The point is that she intends to keep going. That spirit appeared again in one of her sharpest public replies. Before the premiere of her documentary, a reporter framed her absence in a way that suggested loss, decline, and finality. Celine answered in 2 words. I'm not dead. That line holds so much of who she is. It is direct. It is clear. It leaves no room for anyone else to write the ending while she is still here living it. There is also something deeper beneath her decision to return. At home, her 3 sons are watching her move through this life. They have already lived through loss. Their father, René Anelil, died in January 2016, only days before their oldest son's 15th birthday. Celine has spoken about how closely performing is tied to his memory. On stage, she still feels connected to him. The music carries him back to her in some way. That means the stage is not simply where she works. It is also where love, grief, memory, and identity continue to meet. Her documentary showed suffering, yes, but it also did something more. It gave shape to an illness many people had never seen before. It made private pain visible. For people living with invisible conditions, that mattered. They could finally look at someone powerful and famous and say that is what it feels like. And maybe that is one of the deepest truths in all of this. For Celine Dion, walking away from music might cost more than continuing. The illness remains whether she sings or not. It stays in her body either way. Yet the stage still gives her something she cannot easily replace. It gives her meaning. It gives her connection. It gives her a way to remain herself in the middle of something that keeps trying to take pieces of that self away. If you miss that, you miss the heart of the whole story. September is coming now. The date is getting closer. September 12, 2026. La Défense Arena, Nanterre, just outside Paris. 45,000 seats. A sold-out crowd. The first full concert Celine Dion will have given since March 2020. Try to picture that moment. The lights go down. The room falls quiet. Not fully quiet because an arena never truly is. But quiet in that special way. A crowd becomes quiet when it knows something rare is about to happen. Somewhere behind the stage, a woman in her 50s stands in the dark and waits for her cue. She is carrying an incurable neurological illness inside her body. Her medical team is close by. Her sons may be somewhere in the building. And in the deeper part of her memory, maybe Renee is there, too. In the way a loved one can still be present long after death. Now hold two possibilities at once. One possibility is beautiful. This could become one of the greatest comebacks modern music has ever seen. 16 nights of proof that illness did not erase the voice people love. 16 nights of power, emotion, and defiance. The kind of return people talk about for years because it reshapes what they believe a human being can endure and still create. The other possibility is frightening. Her body could fail her on stage. A spasm could strike. A crisis could unfold in public. The stage she loves most could become the place where her illness catches up with her in front of the whole world. Both possibilities are real. That is why this story matters so much. It matters because Celine knows both are real and she is still choosing to step forward. For millions of people living with chronic illness, that choice means something. Not because it turns suffering into a slogan. Not because it makes pain beautiful. It matters because it shows the truth. A person can be scared and still continue. A person can be fragile and still be brave. A person can know the risk and still say yes to life. That is where this story finally lands. This was never really about whether Celine Dion will be okay. That word is too small for what she is facing. The real question is whether she wants to live fully in the body she has with all the risk that comes with it. Everything she has done suggests the answer is yes. September is coming now. The world waits to hear what her voice will do.